All right, now speaking of bad stuff, now we move on to the cannibals in the truck. And then we get these weird-looking people. These are cannibals, as we find out. We get a description of one specific cannibal, the cannibal in the cap, the one who plays a part in this scene. This is how McCarthy described him. His eyes collared in cups of grime and deeply sunk like an animal inside a skull, looking out the eye holes, which I thought was an amazing visual. So you've got this skull, and you've got this animal that lives within the skull, and he's peering out through the eyeballs, the eye holes there. And I think what he's saying here is that these are the people who have given themselves over to their more animalistic nature, their more animalistic desires. They've lost the ability to think and act like men, and they are acting like animals. And I think that this, as a description, is what he's signifying there. I mean, wouldn't you agree? I mean, think about it. To become a cannibal, I mean, a willful cannibal, who enjoys this sort of thing, that's a pretty much the last step in losing your humanity right there. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And that was a question I had. Why cannibals? Why are the ultimate bad people in this story cannibals? And it's not just the worst thing you can do to yourself. I mean, like it grosses us out to think about that, but it's also one of the worst ways you can desecrate another human being, to treat them as an object to that extent that you eat another person. It really is almost one of the worst things we can imagine. And that's, I'm wondering, why did he choose that as the worst evil in this world? I guess that's why, because it's
to kill another
a complete abandonment of humanity in yourself and another person.
To kill another human being for food is something an animal would do.
That's right.
I mean, there's a big difference between being a human and being an animal. We are to kill somebody who bears the image of God and use that person for food. That you've pretty much lost your humanity. It reminds me of what the Joker said to Batman in The Dark Knight. He thought that he could get Gotham City. He said the people, once all these rules, that prop up society, once all these rules are out of place, these people will eat each other. And I think that applies here. Now that the rules are all out of place, people are just eating each other spiritually, figuratively and literally here. They're eating each other. And so we've got this interaction with the cannibal in the woods. And up to this point in the story, this is our character's first interaction with evil in the story. Now, we've had hardship, but we haven't come across evil. Now, there's a difference between hardship and evil, correct?
Yeah.
And so now we've got our first interaction with evil in this story. And the cannibal grabs the boy in the woods. Now remember, there's kind of a standoff there. You remember the scene I'm talking about? The father's got the gun pointed at the cannibal.
I think the boy and the father encounter one of the cannibals in the woods, and he's kind of separated from the larger group of cannibals, right?
He went out there to use the bathroom, yeah.
Right. And so the cannibal is making the point, well, he could make a noise, or if they shoot him, it's going to bring everybody else to that scene. And so you have that sort of standoff. And what do you think of the father's choice in that situation to kill the cannibal who's threatening them?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, he first of all tries to reason with the man. So the father's not some bloodthirsty jackal either. I mean, they get spotted, and he tries to walk. He tells the man tells him, he says, "You fire that gun, they're going to hear you." And the man was like, "Yeah, but you won't. Your brain will be soup, and you will die. You will be dead." And so he's kind of in a. I mean, I don't know that the father really has a plan here. I don't know that there is. He's only got 2 bullets in that gun. It's just a little
That's
pistol.
True.
And so what happens is they end up interacting. The cannibal kind of calls his bluff, and the cannibal grabs the boy. And the father just shoots him with one of their 2 bullets into his skull. The father gets a good shot off and shoots one of their bullets, kills the cannibal. And then they flee. And the boy, of course, is traumatized. This evil almost had him, and the father saved him. And the father and his son flee into the woods. The other people there, the other cannibals, kind of come, and they don't really give too much of a chase. They move on. And here's the really disgusting part of and I don't mean like gross, I just mean like spiritually disgusting. The cannibals just moved on. You know what they did? McCarthy says, he said the cannibals neither spoke nor called out to each other. More sinister for that. They didn't care about the man that they lost, okay? And they found his body. Let me see if I got it here. They find his body, and the man and his son, they left their shopping cart there, okay? And they flee, and the cannibals ruffle through their shopping cart and take some of their stuff and then leave. And then the father and his son come back. And you know what they found? They found a little pool of guts there, because those cannibals, that man who had been shot, the cannibal who the father had shot, the cannibals then took him and ate him. That's how much they cared. You know, I mean, there's no affection in that group. You know what I'm saying? That is a group that is strictly built on survival. And I want to be part of a group because that gives me power. You know, and I'll eat other people and I'll do all this other stuff just so I can be a part of the group. And you know, the boy and his father are not like that. They're bound by more than just a mere instinct for survival. They actually have love, and these people don't. And that's why they're willing to eat their own, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a spiritual lesson, but I mean, these people are physically doing it too, you know.
It does remind me again of Inferno, where in Inferno, the narrator is encountering these sinners who, it's all kinds of gruesome imagery, but they've reached like the logical consequences of their sinful choices. And you see things like this, like guts or brains, it just really gruesome imagery, but it's showing the truth of what sin is. And I think that is what you see with the cannibals. It's a really gruesome image that tells us something about the reality of what it means to sin and to sin against another person.
It's a just dehumanizing process. I mean, you are nothing but food to me. And then as they're kind of on the run here, there's an interaction between the father and the son, and it kind of highlights the son's unwillingness to grow up and accept the world for this meat grinder of violence that it really is. You know, he's still got that kind of childish, innocent outlook. And as they're running, the father, he says, I want you to do what I say. He says, take the gun. He tells the boy to take the gun. And the boy says, I don't want to take the gun. And he said, I didn't ask you if you wanted it, take it. And, so the boy is saying, I don't want to, I don't want to accept reality here. I don't want to accept the fact that I need a gun and that I have to protect myself from this evil. And the man said, I didn't ask you what you want. Reality is that you have to do it, and that's the reality that they live in. And the boy doesn't really want to grow up and face that here. And he's kind of going through those growing pains. And the father's saying, you need to take this gun. Now you're going to have to take care of yourself for just a second. So you take this gun and you take on the responsibility of taking care of yourself. And that's kind of just that one of those slow transitions from him moving away out of that realm of boyhood and into that manhood. The father can't protect him 100% of the time. The boy's going to have to learn now how to protect himself, right? And the boy initially doesn't want to do it, as all boys do. Often that growing into manhood is scary. It's a scary process, And the father says, I didn't ask you what you wanted. I'm telling you, take the gun. I'll be right back. And he goes back to the boy. He knelt down and put his arms around him and held him. And then the father, at this point, after he had protected him from this circumstance, I think the reality starts to sit in. I almost lost him. That evil grabbed my son, and I had to physically stop that from happening. I nearly lost what I value the most in this world. And I think it starts to sit in with the father here. And what do you think about that? I mean, put yourself in that position and imagine how that would kind of rock your world for a second.
Yeah, so we were saying earlier this book doesn't have really that clear of a plot, but you really do see that. Like, this is a transitional moment for the boy because he's having to grow into a man, but I mean, the man is also facing certain decisions. He's facing certain realities, and
right.
I think you're right. I think that's what he's looking at and he's experiencing at this time. But it's definitely, I think, a turn in the story. Like, we're seeing sort of on screen how bad the world really is and all the things that could happen to the man and the boy. And the boy is starting to see that as well. And so I think this is a transition point in the book for sure.
And then there's a scene where they have to keep moving, but the boy is scared. He's scared. I mean, he's just been through this traumatic experience, and he's almost kind of shutting down, And it's frustrating to the man that the boy is being so hesitant to move forward. And I think that also is metaphorical. The boy is hesitant to move forward into that realm of manhood, and it's kind of frustrating the father at the son kind of dragging his feet there. And so you've got this process of the boy being afraid and hesitant to move forward. And I think that because what we talk about here, McCarthy, he mentions it. He says, this is what the father says. He says, as he's washing the cannibal's brains out of his son's hair. I mean, the cannibal had his son, and he shot him. And that, of course, all that gore exploded onto the boy there. And after they ran and got safe, he's washing all of this out of his son, who's kind of catatonic at this point, really. And the father says, this is my child. I wash a dead man's brains out of his hair. That is my job. Then he wrapped him in a blanket and carried him to the fire. And then here's where we get into this kind of transition into manhood, because in the next paragraph, McCarthy says all of this is like some ancient anointing. And it's like an ancient initiation ceremony where the boy dies, metaphorically, and the man then is born. The man starts to come forth. The boy that he is fades away. The man that he is to be starts stepping forward. And I think that's what McCarthy is hinting at here as an initiation ceremony. And the boy is almost in this catatonic state where almost dead-like, and then he comes forth reborn a man, and that's what being a man is, realizing the reality in which you live. I mean, right? You realize the reality of the world around you. That's part of being a mature man, a mature woman. Being an adult is realizing and respecting the reality that's around you. It's not how you want it to be. I don't care what you want, the father told the boy. You got to take the gun, right? I mean, wouldn't you agree that's part of being an adult is submitting to the truth of reality, learning how to do that?
Oh, absolutely. And that reminds me, too, going back to that discussion between the man and his wife, that she believed that the choice she was making was the one that was in accordance with reality. Like, this is what the world is, and so this is what I have to do. But it was really his choice that was in accordance with what reality really is, and what he is and what his son is, the inherent dignity of themselves as human beings. So I think that's also, as an adult, you have to accept reality, but we have to accept and receive what reality really is, which is there's bad things that exist. I think a lot of times when you say, as you're growing up, you learn more about reality, and you're thinking all the bad things in the world. But we also do not have an adequate understanding of the good and just how valuable every single human being is. And so I think you can tell people to recognize reality, and if you're not receiving and understanding the good, it's going to lead to wrong decisions, because that isn't reality. It's what looks like reality.
Right, and that's what the man, when he gives his son the gun, he's like, I've got to go over here and check this out. You need to stay here and protect yourself. You keep the gun. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so that the boy could commit, malicious harm with the gun. The gun is there as a tool to protect that which is valuable, And that's what McCarthy is doing here with the gun. That is my reality is that, I am responsible for you. Now, and this is where, and we're not going to get too deep into this here, but as a parent, you can't follow your children everywhere they go. You can't be with them everywhere and hover over them like a helicopter and protect them from every single thing. And that's what the man is teaching the boy here. I will be right back, but you're going to have to take care of yourself while I'm gone. You're going to have to protect yourself. And that is one of the hallmarks of a real man, in this case, a real woman, if it were a woman here, is being able to take care of yourself, right? You're not that's when you move out of the realm of child and start moving into the realm of adult, when you are able to start taking care of yourself.
That's so true. That's the choice the boy is given, and despite what he's just lived through and how traumatic it is, I think he lives up to it. I think he rises to the occasion. He has to. So
He does, exactly.
I think you do see him grow in this scene.
Yeah, and the boy he's not talking. There's some time passes and the boy's not talking. He's slowly processing all of these events, and the father does what a good father does. He takes the responsibility upon himself. He says that I should have been more careful, and then he tells this to his son. This is from the book. He says, "You wanted to know what the bad guys look like. Well, now you know. It may happen again. My job is to take care of you. I was appointed to do that by God. I will kill anyone who touches you. Do you understand?" And that's verbatim from the book right there. And that's what the father tells his son. And that's a good father. That is a true father right there. I mean, that perfectly encapsulates the mindset of a father with his children. There's evil out there in the world. You wanted to know what it looked like? Well, there it is. It's bad and it's dangerous. And I will kill anybody. I will kill you dead if you try to harm my children. And that's a good parent right there. And that's what just my respect for the man grows, through little scenes like that. After all of this with the cannibal and everything, the boy asks his father. Now, the father has killed a man. The father has washed the man's brains out of his son's hair and all this other stuff. And the boy is traumatized by all of this. And he asks his father, which I think is a reasonable question, are we still the good guys? And the father says, yes, we're still the good guys. And the boy says, and we always will be. Father says, yes, we always will be. We always will be the good guys.